What if you could learn data science, AI, cybersecurity, cloud computing, digital marketing, and even project management completely free? No fees, no catch. And yes, you get a certificate too. Welcome to OMNI Academy, Pakistan's leading IT training institute since 2010, part of MHSG Consulting Group, helping thousands build real-world skills and land jobs. Every month, OMNI Academy offers 50+ free workshops taught by industry experts covering everything from AI and cloud to cybersecurity, networking, and more. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just starting out, there's something for you. Join online from anywhere in Pakistan, Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, or beyond. So don't wait. Register now at omniacademy.com and secure your spot today. OMNI Academy, your career transformation starts here, and it starts free.
Extended Introduction. Free ISO 27001 Lead Auditor. Cybersecurity Compliance Workshop. What if your organization has invested heavily in cybersecurity, installed security tools, created policies, and implemented access controls, but still cannot confidently answer one important question? Are our information security controls actually working? In today's connected business environment, organizations handle enormous amounts of sensitive information every day. Customer records, employee information, financial data, intellectual property, business strategies, credentials, internal communications, and operational data all need to be protected. A single security weakness can create serious consequences. A compromised account can expose confidential information. A phishing attack can give attackers access to internal systems. Poor access management can allow unauthorized employees to reach sensitive data. And inadequate processes can make it difficult for an organization to respond effectively when an incident occurs. This is why cybersecurity is no longer only an IT concern. It has become a business responsibility. Organizations need to understand what information they have, what risks they face, which controls they have implemented, and whether those controls are actually operating as intended. This is where ISO 27001 becomes highly relevant. ISO 27001 provides a structured framework for establishing and continually improving an information security management system, commonly known as an ISMS. But understanding ISO 27001 is not simply about reading a standard or memorizing requirements. It's about understanding how an organization manages information security in the real world. And this is where the role of an ISO 27001 lead auditor becomes important. A lead auditor is responsible for examining an organization's information security management system and determining whether it meets the relevant requirements and whether the processes and controls are effectively implemented. That means an auditor needs to look beyond what is written in a policy document. For example, an organization may have a formal password policy, but does everyone actually follow it? An organization may have an employee access management procedure, but are access rights reviewed regularly? An organization may have an incident response plan, but do employees know what to do when a security incident occurs? An organization may say that security awareness training is provided, but is there evidence showing that employees completed the training? These are the kinds of questions that an auditor needs to explore. The purpose is not simply to find faults. The purpose is to evaluate the effectiveness of the management system using objective evidence. This makes auditing a combination of technical understanding, business awareness, communication, critical thinking, and professional judgment. And that is exactly what makes ISO 27001 lead auditing an interesting and valuable area within cybersecurity and compliance. In this free workshop, we are going to take you through the fundamentals of ISO 27001 lead auditing and help you understand what happens during an information security audit. We will explore what ISO 27001 is, why organizations use an ISMS, how information security risks are managed, what auditors look for, how audit evidence is collected, how findings are identified, and how organizations can prepare for an audit. We will also look at the mindset required to become an effective auditor, because a good auditor does not simply ask, "Do you have a policy?" A good auditor asks, "Show me how this requirement is implemented. What evidence supports this process? How do you monitor its effectiveness? What happens when the process is not followed?" That shift from simply checking documents to evaluating real implementation is one of the most important concepts we will discuss throughout this workshop. Whether you are a cybersecurity professional, IT specialist, compliance professional, risk management professional, auditor, student, or someone planning to build a career in information security, understanding ISO 27001 can help you see cybersecurity from a broader organizational perspective. Cybersecurity is not only about stopping attacks, it is also about identifying risks before they become problems, establishing appropriate controls, monitoring those controls, documenting processes, measuring effectiveness, and continuously improving the organization's security posture. So, if you are interested in understanding how organizations approach information security compliance and how professional auditors evaluate an ISMS, this workshop is a great place to start. Let's begin by understanding the foundation of ISO 27001, the purpose of an information security management system, and the role of a lead auditor in helping organizations evaluate and improve their information security practices. Welcome to the free ISO 27001 Lead Auditor Cybersecurity Compliance Workshop. Understanding ISO 27001. Let's begin with the basics. ISO 27001 is an international standard for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an information security management system, commonly known as an ISMS. An ISMS provides organizations with a structured approach to protecting information. This includes protecting information from unauthorized access, accidental loss, misuse, alteration, and other security risks. But ISO 27001 is not simply about technology. It involves people, processes, policies, risk management, documentation, controls, and continuous improvement. That is what makes ISO 27001 valuable for organizations across different industries. Why ISO 27001 matters. Think about the amount of information an organization handles every day: customer information, employee records, financial information, business strategies, passwords and credentials, internal documents, intellectual property. A security incident involving any of this information can affect an organization's reputation, operations, customers, and finances. ISO 27001 helps organizations take a systematic approach to identifying information security risks and implementing appropriate controls. It also provides a framework for demonstrating that information security is being managed systematically. For organizations working with customers, suppliers, partners, or regulated industries, having strong information security practices can also support trust and business relationships. What is an ISMS? Now let's understand one of the most important foundations of ISO 27001, the Information Security Management System, commonly known as an ISMS. So what exactly is an ISMS? An ISMS is a structured management framework that helps an organization identify, assess, manage, and continuously improve its information security risks. In simple terms, an ISMS gives an organization a systematic way to protect the information that is important to its business. And this is an important point to understand. An ISMS is not a software application. It is not something an organization can simply install on a computer and say, "Our information security is now managed." An ISMS is also not only the responsibility of the IT department. Information security affects the entire organization. Think about an organization where the IT department has implemented strong technical security controls, but employees are not trained to recognize phishing emails. Or an organization has excellent security policies, but employees do not follow them. Or access controls are configured correctly, but employee access is never reviewed when people change roles. In each of these situations, technology may be working, but the overall information security management system may still have weaknesses. That is why an effective ISMS brings together people, processes, technology, policies, risks, controls, and management responsibilities. Let's break this down further. First, management needs to provide direction. Information security needs support from leadership. Management needs to understand the organization's security objectives, provide appropriate resources, establish responsibilities, and ensure that information security is treated as an important business priority. Without management support, security initiatives can become isolated technical projects, instead of becoming part of the organization's overall way of working. Next, the organization needs to understand its information and its risks. What information does the organization hold? Where is that information stored? Who has access to it? What could happen if that information was lost, stolen, modified, or exposed? What systems, processes, employees, suppliers, and technologies are involved? These questions help an organization understand its information security environment. Once risks are identified, the organization can determine how those risks should be addressed. This brings us to another important part of an ISMS: risk assessment and risk treatment. Organizations face different risks depending on their industry, size, technology, business model, and operating environment. For example, one organization may be highly concerned about unauthorized access to customer data. Another may be more concerned about ransomware disrupting critical operations. Another may have significant third-party or supplier risks. The purpose of an ISMS is not necessarily to eliminate every possible risk. Instead, it provides a structured approach for understanding risks and deciding how they should be managed. This can involve implementing appropriate security controls, changing processes, transferring certain risks, or accepting risks when appropriate. Now, let's talk about people. Employees are a critical part of information security. Even sophisticated security systems can be affected by human behavior. An employee may accidentally click on a phishing link. Someone may share confidential information with the wrong person. An employee may use an insecure password. A staff member may leave sensitive documents exposed. This is why an ISMS also considers awareness, training, responsibilities, and organizational processes. Employees need to understand what is expected from them. They need to know how to handle information securely. They need to understand how to report security incidents. And they need to know what actions are acceptable and what actions can create security risks. Another important element is documentation. An organization needs to establish appropriate policies, procedures, records, and other documented information that supports its information security management system. Documentation helps create consistency. It can define responsibilities, explain processes, establish requirements, and provide evidence that activities are being performed. However, documentation alone is not enough. This is particularly important from an auditor's perspective. An organization may have an excellent-looking information security policy, but an auditor will want to understand whether that policy is actually implemented. For example, suppose a company has a policy stating that user access should be reviewed regularly. The auditor may ask, who performs the review? How often is it performed? Which systems are included? What happens when inappropriate access is identified? Are review records maintained? Can the organization provide evidence that the process is actually happening? This is where an ISMS becomes more than a collection of documents. It becomes a working management system. Now let's look at security controls. Controls are measures that help an organization manage identified information security risks. These can include technical controls, organizational controls, physical controls, and processes. For example, access management can help control who is allowed to access specific systems or information. Backup processes can support the availability and recovery of important information. Security awareness training can reduce risks associated with human error. Incident management processes can help an organization respond when a security event occurs. Physical security measures can help protect facilities, equipment, and information from unauthorized physical access. The important thing is that controls should be selected and implemented based on the organization's risks and security requirements. An ISMS also involves monitoring and evaluation. Organizations cannot simply implement security controls and forget about them. They need to determine whether those controls continue to work effectively. Are security objectives being achieved? Are processes being followed? Are incidents increasing or decreasing? Are employees completing required training? Are access reviews being performed? Are previous audit findings being addressed? These types of questions help an organization evaluate the effectiveness of its information security management system. This leads us to one of the most important concepts in ISO 27001, continual improvement. Information security is not a one-time project. Threats change, technology changes, business processes change, employees change, customers and suppliers change, regulatory and contractual requirements can change. Because of this, an organization's information security management system also needs to evolve. An ISMS should therefore operate as a continuous cycle. The organization identifies risks, It plans how those risks should be managed. It implements appropriate controls. It monitors performance. It evaluates results. It identifies weaknesses and opportunities for improvement. And then it makes improvements and begins the cycle again. This continuous approach helps organizations move away from simply reacting to security incidents and toward a more structured approach to managing information security. Another important point is that an ISMS should be appropriate for the organization. There is no single identical ISMS that works perfectly for every company. A small organization and a large multinational organization may have very different risks, resources, technologies, and business processes. The ISMS needs to consider the organization's specific context, objectives, requirements, and risks. This is also why understanding the organization's scope is important.
An organization needs to clearly understand what parts of its business, processes, locations, systems, and information are included within the ISMS.
Once the scope is understood, the organization can better determine what risks need to be considered and what controls are relevant. From an auditing perspective, all of these elements become extremely important. When an ISO 27001 lead auditor evaluates an ISMS, the auditor is not simply checking whether documents exist. The auditor is looking at how the management system has been established, how it is implemented, how it is monitored, and whether there is objective evidence demonstrating that relevant requirements are being addressed. The auditor may interview employees. They may review policies and records. They may examine processes. They may evaluate evidence of control implementation. They may ask questions about risk assessments. They may review how incidents are handled. They may examine how corrective actions are managed. The objective is to develop an evidence-based understanding of how effectively the ISMS is operating. So, if you remember only one thing from this section, remember this. An ISMS is not just a set of cybersecurity tools. It is a complete management approach to information security. It brings together leadership, people, processes, technology, risk management, controls, documentation, monitoring, auditing, and continual improvement. And this is exactly why an ISMS is such an important concept for anyone interested in ISO 2701 lead auditing. As an auditor, you need to understand how all these elements connect. You need to look at the bigger picture. You need to understand not only what the organization says it does, but also what it actually does and what evidence demonstrates that. Because ultimately, effective information security is not achieved by implementing one tool or creating one policy. It is achieved through a structured system that is continuously managed, evaluated, and improved. And that is the role an effective information security management system plays within an organization's cybersecurity and compliance framework. The role of an ISO 27001 lead auditor. So what exactly does a lead auditor do? A lead auditor plays an important role in evaluating whether an organization's management system meets the applicable requirements of the ISO 27001 standard. The auditor needs to understand the standard, plan the audit, gather evidence, interview relevant personnel, review documentation, identify findings, and communicate the results. But auditing is not simply about finding mistakes. A professional auditor needs to remain objective and evidence-based. Instead of saying, "Your security process is weak," the auditor needs to ask, "What evidence demonstrates that this control is implemented and operating effectively?" That difference is extremely important. An audit should be based on evidence, not assumptions. Understanding the audit process. A typical audit involves several important stages. The first stage is audit planning. Before beginning the audit, the auditor needs to understand the organization's scope, processes, objectives, relevant requirements, and available information. Next comes the audit preparation. The auditor reviews relevant documentation and develops an audit plan. Then comes the audit execution. This is where interviews, observations, document reviews, and other evidence-gathering activities take place. The auditor may speak with employees, managers, IT teams, HR personnel, compliance teams, and other process owners. The goal is to determine whether the organization is actually doing what its documented processes and controls require. Evidence-based auditing. One of the most important concepts for an auditor is objective evidence. Imagine an organization says, "We conduct security awareness training for all employees. That statement alone is not enough. An auditor may ask, when was the training conducted? Who participated? What topics were covered? Are training records available? How is completion monitored? What happens when someone does not complete the training? The auditor is looking for evidence that supports the claim. This is the mindset of professional auditing. Don't assume. Verify. Risk assessment and ISO 27001. Risk management is another major part of ISO 27001. Organizations face different types of information security risks. For example, unauthorized access, phishing attacks, data loss, malware, weak passwords, insider threats, system failures, third-party risks, physical security incidents. An organization needs to understand its risks and determine how those risks should be treated. The auditor then evaluates whether the organization's risk management approach is appropriately established and implemented. Understanding security controls. ISO 27001 also involves information security controls. Controls are measures used to manage information security risks. They can include policies, procedures, technical safeguards, physical measures, and organizational practices. For example, access control can help ensure that employees only have access to information they actually need. Backup procedures can help organizations recover information after an incident. Security awareness programs can help employees recognize phishing and social engineering attempts. Incident management processes can help organizations respond when something goes wrong. The auditor needs to evaluate whether relevant controls are appropriately implemented and supported by evidence. Common audit findings. During an audit, different types of findings may be identified. These can include missing documentation, incomplete implementation, ineffective processes, lack of evidence, or failures to follow established procedures. For example, an organization may have an access control policy, but employees may still retain access to systems after changing roles. The policy exists, but implementation may not match the documented requirement. This is why auditors need to look beyond documentation. A strong audit examines whether the system actually works in practice. Auditor skills. Becoming an effective lead auditor requires more than knowing the ISO standard. You also need strong communication skills. You need to ask the right questions. You need to listen carefully. You need to analyze evidence. You need to remain objective. You need to manage interviews professionally. And you need to communicate findings clearly. An auditor should be able to identify an issue without creating unnecessary conflict. The goal is to provide an accurate assessment based on evidence. Preparing for an ISO 27001 audit. If an organization is preparing for an audit, one of the best approaches is to start early. Review your information security policies. Understand your organizational scope. Review your risk assessment. Check whether controls are implemented. Verify that employees understand their responsibilities. Review records and evidence. Check previous findings. And most importantly, don't wait until the audit date to discover problems. Internal audits and regular reviews can help organizations identify gaps before an external audit. Why this skill matters. ISO 27001 auditing is becoming increasingly relevant as organizations place greater importance on information security, compliance, risk management, and data protection. Professionals working in cybersecurity, IT, compliance, risk management, governance, quality management, and information security can benefit from understanding how management systems are audited. Whether you are beginning your cybersecurity career or looking to expand your professional skill set, understanding ISO 27001 can give you another valuable area of expertise. Final takeaway. Let's recap. ISO 27001 provides a structured framework for managing information security. An ISMS brings together people, processes, technology, and risk management. A lead auditor evaluates whether the management system meets applicable requirements and whether processes and controls are effectively implemented. And professional auditing depends on one fundamental principle: evidence over assumptions. The more you understand about risk, controls, documentation, auditing, and continuous improvement, the better prepared you can be to contribute to information security and compliance. If this workshop gave you a better understanding of ISO 27001, lead auditing, and cybersecurity compliance, don't stop here. Take the next step and continue building your professional skills with OMNI Academy. As a special benefit for our workshop participants, you can get 20% off on selected courses and certifications after attending the workshop. The 20% discount is valid for 7 days. So if you're interested in cybersecurity, information security, compliance, auditing, or professional certifications, this is a great opportunity to continue learning. You can also explore the OMNI Jobs and Internships portal to discover relevant career opportunities. And don't forget to subscribe to the OMNI Jobs WhatsApp channel for regular updates about new job opportunities and internships. Keep learning, keep building practical skills, and keep moving forward in your professional journey with OMNI Academy.